Approval of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of working off the agenda as provided in your packet signify by saying yes. Yes. Any opposed signify by saying no. Motion carries. Gets us to recognition of the audience, and nobody had signed up to address us, although I know we have some very esteemed folks here that are going to share words of wisdom with us throughout the evening. So we'll jump right over to staff reports. Anything new from the perspective of the FEA?
Pretty soon you're going to see skinning in here Jolene Krabenhoft, who's on the executive board. She just left a meeting at Centennial about 9 minutes ago. So check your Google Maps, see if she speeds. I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Gets us to our other staff reports, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Schatz for some opening comments.
Thank you. This evening, we're going to highlight our positive school culture part of our strategic plan, and so we have two folks here to do some presentations about the programs they have in their schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob and Rachel, because Bob and Rachel work with these folks on that, so I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thank you very much. As part of the strategic plan, each building is asked to not only survey, but work on a plan to really build a strong culture within their building. And across our system, you're going to see great examples of different initiatives based upon the needs of the staff, based upon the needs of the students. And tonight, you're going to see two different looks at that, two different ways that the staff in the building really came together to say, here's what we see would help us move that climate and culture in a positive direction. And to start with, Mr. Dolan is here with two people from Fargo North, and I'm going to let him do the introductions, but they're here to talk about their champion program and the impact it's had on the students at Fargo North.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to again say thanks to our board for serving. You know, some of you have been longtime board members, and we just want to tell you again how much we appreciate your commitment to our community and our schools and the service that you provide. This evening, I get a chance to introduce two of our SIP chairs, or actually our only SIP chairs, and they just do a fabulous job here at North High School. Part of what I would say about them is that they're also AP teachers, and I wrote them an email earlier this summer, and it was really interesting that these two guys have been assistant basketball coaches along with their head basketball coach, just kind of dominated the efforts in our AP scores across the state. And what I wrote about these guys is that an AP micro-econ, that's Brian Kaluza, he's the teacher of our AP micro-econ, we had 8 5s, which are the perfect scores for your AP exams, more than half of the state totals. 86% of our physics students, and that's Mike Doberstein's classroom, earned a qualifying score, just an outstanding result. In all courses, the North High average scores in geography, micro-econ, physics was higher than the state or global averages. And in both micro-econ and physics, we have an all-time high in the number of students taking the exam. So what's cool about this is that these two guys are SIP chairs, and obviously you want to put the top people in those positions because they have an influence on what we do here at North High School. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian first, and I think he's got a PowerPoint here that we're going to have rolling here. Oh, he even knows how to turn on the projector.
There you go. All right, so I'm Brian Kaluza, and just to echo the sentiments of Mr. Dolan, thanks to I think it was Dr. Gross that reached out to us to present this information. Thanks to the board for taking your time to listen to some of the things we're doing at Fargo North High School. So this is what we call our champion program. And kind of the premise of this program is a way for us to reach some of those kids that maybe need an extra advocate in their lives, and we use our teachers to serve that purpose. So a few things here of where it came from. So it's aligned with our school improvement plan. So our goal states that we'll provide a positive and nurturing school culture that supports student learning. And there's a lot of components to that. Included in those components are the staff presence in our hallway. It's something our administration has really talked to us about, of developing relationships outside of the classroom. So before school, after school, in between class periods. We also use our dropout prevention coordinator to serve as a way to keep those kids in the classes, keep them in our schools. The promotion of our open door policy, which I'm not sure if you've heard of that. It's a way for kids to get some resources that maybe they're lacking, whether that be food or clothing or gas cards. So another way to reach that population. And then what we'll talk about tonight is our champion program, where we're building relationships between our staff and our students. So many of you have probably seen this clip. This is a TED Talk done by Rita Pierson a number of years ago, basically where she's talking about her theme is every child deserves a champion. We're not going to show you that whole clip. I have taken out about 45 seconds of that. That really serves as kind of the backbone of what we do with our program.
Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
So from that video, we've showed our staff that a couple of times over the last 4 or 5 years. And really the quote we've kind of hung our hat on is every child deserves a champion. So with that, what do we think at Fargo North? What does that mean to us, and how do we promote that role to our teachers? So I've kind of listed some things that we use with our staff as far as being an advocate for students, specifically students that maybe are lacking that outside of school. Our job is to encourage, motivate, mentor, all those different things. We've added in the idea of tutoring kids, so trying to find common open time where we can work with those students outside of our classes. And our big push this year is those last 2 bullet points where we're really trying to make kids aware of the opportunities they have to represent Fargo North outside of the student setting. I think the more involved we can get kids, besides just being a student, the more connection they have to our school, and then we have other steps we can take beyond that. And then from our teacher standpoint, we're trying to build relationships with those kids, and there's several different ways we can do that, and we'll talk about those coming up here. As far as how this program works, we're really looking at what we call the 3 A's. The 3 points of emphasis for this are academics. So really, how can we increase the GPA of these kids that are towards the lower end of some of the spectrums that what we're working with? The second part is attendance. How can we get these kids into school and keep them in school on a consistent basis? And the third part is our activities piece, where, again, trying to get kids involved to find that deeper connection to the community of Fargo North High School. So what that's looked like this semester is we've identified 204 kids that we're going to place an emphasis on with our staff members. So if you take that, divide it up amongst roughly 70 teachers, each teacher has 3 students that they're really targeting to build that relationship with on a deeper level. So the way that works and how those kids find their way into the program is we are measuring those with chronic attendance issues. So we look at that every quarter, every semester, and what that looks like on average is over the last 3 years, anywhere from 9.5 days of class missed to 11.5 days of class missed per semester. And that's an average, so some of those kids are missing 25 days, some of those kids are missing 5 or 6. So we're trying to find kids that have chronic attendance issues. The second part of that is we're trying to find kids struggling in the academic portion of school. So the lowest quartile for GPA for each grade level, we're taking those kids and trying to find kids that we can help in the academic side of things. And again, on average, per quarter, that's ranged from anywhere from a GPA of 2.28 up to a 2.66. Again, with the understanding some are higher, some are lower than that number. And then the third piece, which gets our teachers involved, is we're looking for teacher feedback on kids that they're working with where they realize that they may need an extra advocate, an extra voice, and an extra support system in the schools. So as this program is developed, kind of what the results we've looked at and kind of our expected outcomes or what we hope to see out of this, our emphasis continues to be the teacher-student engagement. We think that's really the backbone of getting a kid connected to our school, in turn increasing their GPA, decreasing their number of absences, and getting them more involved. So as we said earlier, teachers have the individuals tutor time where they work with their champion programs one-on-one outside of the classroom setting. Again, the promotion of co-curricular activities, trying to get our students involved and making them aware of things. Our push this year is really just letting kids know what they can be involved in, whether it's music, drama, sports, co-curriculars, whatever it is. And then from the teacher standpoint, we're trying to get more teachers to observe these things. We're trying to get teachers outside of the classroom, seeing some of those great things kids are doing, going to concerts, seeing what their clubs are doing, going to a football game, whatever it might be, but connecting teachers back to students outside the setting as well. And the way we're measuring that is we have a rubric system we've set up. I'm not going to share that with you right now, but there's a system where we're looking at, it's a scale anywhere from 0 to 9 is where these kids earn a score in this champion program. So a 9 would be a great score, meaning a kid has less than 2 absences per semester. They're above a 3.0 GPA, and they're in 3 or more activities throughout the school year. That's kind of a model student that we say. Anywhere from then the 0 end of the spectrum is not involved, missing more than 10 days of school, and less than a 1.0 GPA. So we have kids anywhere in that range, and we use that data to then drive our next steps of what we're going to do with those kids. And Mr. Dolberstein is going to share some of those next steps or the next results we're looking for.
So yeah, I'm Mike Doberstein, teach physics at Fargo North High School, and so as Brian said, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the next steps regarding our champion program. And there aren't any real drastic changes from year to year, but if we were to compare our champion program this year to what it looked like in our first year 4 years ago, it is quite a bit different. And so what we look at is really our successes versus our challenges. And the data that we're reviewing are our dropout numbers, the scores with the 3 A's that Brian had already mentioned from year to year. You can't really look at those from quarter to quarter, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Our staff survey, so we get feedback from our teachers, things that they're liking and maybe some things that they would like to see different. And then also guidance from our building SIP team, things that they maybe think we could change to improve the program. So one of the challenges that we see really every year is that the sheer number of students that we have, over 200 students we have placed on this program for 70 teachers. And it might not sound like a lot to really try to make a connection and build a relationship with 3 students, but that can be a bit of a challenge to be able to do that. Also the selection process. So each teacher is asked to sign up for 3 kids. And what we do is during a faculty meeting, we have these students, the names on large posters, and our staff goes out and they sign up for names, and you might only have 5 or 6 or 7 of those kids in your class, but other teachers are signing up for them. So it takes a bit of problem solving to get all of those students covered and to ensure that all of our teachers have 3 or maybe even 4 champions or students that they are championing. The other challenge that we see is that we add students at the end of the first quarter and really at the end of the second quarter, and we identify based on their GPA and their attendance. And so those students are being placed into our program at those times. And so when we compared the GPA from quarter 1 to quarter 2, you might expect, or in a perfect world, they're hoping that GPA is going to be increasing if we were to take an average of our total population. But by simply adding students that are at the lowest end of that spectrum, that really kind of it sabotages those numbers a little bit. So you can't really compare from quarter to quarter that way. Also, another challenge that we see is that individual teachers might not have success with their individual students, and that can be hard for our teachers because they're putting all of this effort forward, and maybe their student is still chronically absent. Their student is their GPA is decreasing from quarter 1 to quarter 2, and so forth. But what we really try to remind our staff is we're dealing with the most at-risk population in our school. And so what I have down there at the bottom is success looks different for everybody. That student whose GPA maybe decreases a little bit each quarter, or maybe it maintains, that might not look like a success story. But for that individual student, the fact that they got credit for all of their classes and they made it through the entire school year could be a huge success for that individual. And so we try to remind our students, or our teachers, of that. Some of the successes that we've seen, and one of the things that I looked at here was our senior survey, which the seniors fill out each year. And there are some statements, and the students kind of select, they agree or disagree with those statements. And one of them I have here is that I had a positive relationship with my teachers at school. 98% of our students, or our seniors, I should say, agreed with that statement. And Brian had mentioned earlier, this program is really about building relationships. So we saw that 98% of students said that they had a positive relationship there. I feel my teachers treat me with respect, 95% agreed. Next one down there, it says the number of teachers that know me well, 98% of our students said at least one teacher knows them well. And that might not seem like an impressive statistic at first, but keep in mind our high school teachers have somewhere between 100 to 130 students. Do we get to know all of them throughout the year? Sure. Do we get to know all of them very well? Maybe not. Unfortunately not. And so really what we're trying to do in part of this program is to catch those students that are maybe going to slip through the cracks, the ones that kind of, they're quiet and they hide in the classroom a little bit. So to have 98% of our students say at least someone in the school knows them well, and then you look, 92% of our students said 2 or more teachers knew them very well. And so I think that is actually a pretty impressive statistic when you look at it through that lens. There's also an open-ended response portion to the senior survey, and they can pick some things that they like about our school, some things that they don't like about our school. And as I was reading through those, I was just taking a highlighter, and our staff, or the quality of our staff, was mentioned 77 times. And so I thought that was, it really helps support the program that we're putting in place here. Students are noticing that teachers and administrators and support staff really care about them. They care about their success. They care about making them the best people that they can possibly be. And I'm going to leave you with that quote down there at the bottom. This was a direct quote right off of our senior survey. It says, everyone seems to have at least one staff member that they can connect with on a deeper level, that they feel comfortable talking to. And if you think back to what Rita Pierson said, every student or every child deserves a champion. Every student has a staff member that they can connect with. And a student in our school noticed that. So I thought that was pretty neat that somebody saw that, and that really helps support our mission and what we're trying to accomplish with this champion program. So with that, I would like to say thank you for giving us this time to share with you what we're doing at North High School. And with that, I don't know if we're going to have time for any questions, but anybody have any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions, but hats off. First of all, to Andy for his leadership, for both of your leadership, and actually the entire 70 staff members that are involved. Tremendous idea. Thank you.
I'll maybe just echo one thing is we do ask a lot out of our staff in regards to this program, but we really don't receive any negative feedback. So it is a big compliment to the staff that we have at Fargo North. Some really impressive teachers there.
And I think we do have some questions or comments. Jennifer.
So maybe I missed it, but how long has this program been going on at North?
I'm in my 5th year teaching there, and I think it's been 4 years. I think maybe 5, but 4. Yeah.
Okay, all right. It sounds like a wonderful program. In addition, my second question would be, do we do this at our other middle schools, or have you had the opportunity to share sort of a best practice opportunity with the other middle schools or high schools or elementaries for that matter?
I don't know that this is occurring at other schools. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Bob might know.
Yeah.
I think one of the good things about that each building creates that culture plan and the activities is that it does come from the staff up. And as this champion program was developed at Fargo North, I think you get the buy-in from that, and because of that, the momentum continues. There are similar activities at our other high schools and at the middle school. You'll see our academic interventions at some of our other high schools where they're identifying students who are struggling academically, providing them that extra help during their off periods. You'll see at our the advisory program at the middle school, again, to create those relationships. So it may not look identical, but there are similar things happening in most of our buildings.
Linda.
Well, you reinforced what I was going to ask about, which was the teacher response. You know, teachers are called on to do a lot, as you say, and when you mentioned that they're also encouraged to take in activities outside of the school day and so forth, I guess I was just curious about some of the response you get back. You said it's been positive, but do the teachers experience a deeper experience just as a teacher, is this program enriching their experience as well, rather than feeling like they're being asked to, to do more? Just kind of curious anecdotally how that has
Sure,
gone.
yeah, I'll say from my perspective anyway, it can be hard to necessarily see that success like I talked about on that previous slide. For me, I've been fortunate that every student that I have championed has been able to make it and graduate high school. And I think, other teachers might not be able to say that same thing, but, where I thought that this was really justified and my kind of feel-good moment maybe was really reading that staff survey and seeing some of those things that students were saying. They're recognizing that there are teachers putting forth that effort, and they're recognizing that students have somebody that they can go to. So from my perspective, that's kind of how I feel. I don't know if, Brian, you want to?
Yeah. I'll just add one piece that I think our staff is, you'll always have those teachers that go to those activities and partake in those, but I think also on top of that is we're creating dialogue between teachers and students in the schools. So even if I can't make it to a swim meet, I probably know now who my swimmers are. I think that's probably another piece of that is maybe if we're not at the events, at least it's creating dialogue and building the relationship just by promoting those activities. So.
I'm just curious, if you have 3 students a year on average, if you carry over the same kid from one year to the next, if they start as a sophomore or a junior or whatever, is that the intent?
That is not the intent, actually. The intent is to work with kids that you have in class that semester.
Oh,
So actually, even at semester time, we'll have another meeting and we'll select new students based off who we have in class. So.
I'm curious, and Andy, you can probably answer this better. The rate of absenteeism for these kids was around 20 per student. What is the average up there? Do you have any idea how many?
No, the only thing I could probably give you in terms of data today is that about, I think it's 24% of our students have 10 or more absences. So that's a lot. And we try to emphasize the importance of being in school and work with parents and families with regards to students' absences. I have our assistant principals work with students who have 3 or more absences in the month of September, because then you're probably going to average about 20 absences. So we start those dialogues really early and try to make a difference at that point. Yep. Well, again, I just want to thank these guys. You can tell that they're exceptional teachers here. They're both aspire to be administrators, so you can sense that is the ground that they might cover at some point. So again, I want to thank these guys and appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, Andy, and, you didn't actually have your sidekick comedian for tonight's presentation. You instead brought some all-stars with you, so, and hats off to North High on the AP results. Absolutely all-star. Go ahead, Rachel.
Tonight we have Mr. Jason Chris up here from Lewis and Clark. He's the principal there. And I know we've had a lot of talk over the last couple of years of this term envoy. I know David's brought it up that he's heard this. We've seen it out in buildings when we've been visiting. But Mr. Cressup has taken something that has been kind of an optional opportunity for teachers for probably the last 7-8 years. And has really picked it up and tried to wrap his arms around of what does this look like as a school-wide initiative, including work that's being done in unstructured spaces, like in the hallway, on the playground, in his cafeteria program. And so he's going to share tonight to educate you a little bit more on what Envoy is, as well as how they are utilizing that in year 2 at Lewis and Clark. So, Jason.
Well, thank you again, and I want to say thank you to Rachel. She's really the one who helped me see what this potentially could be by offering me an opportunity to see it in person in Minneapolis, and that's where it really began. So thank you, Rachel, for that, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this, because it is truly something that I'm incredibly passionate about and believe in wholeheartedly. I'm in my 23rd year of education, and as you go through 23 years, you get to experience a lot of things in terms of professional development. And in terms of Envoy and the impact it has on students, I've not been a part of anything that has been more impactful, not only for me, but for the students that are getting exposed to this. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about what Envoy is. And Envoy stands for Educational Nonverbal Yardsticks. And you might ask yourself the question, well, what's the O stand for? Nothing. It just sounds cooler than envy. And that's truly from Michael Grinder, is the gentleman who created this, and it was a decision he made that he didn't want something to be envy. It just has a more of a negative connotation. So the O is just an add-on there. But truly what Envoy is, it is the use of nonverbal communication. And through his research and studies, he's been in many classrooms, and what he looked for is the things that work within classrooms. And through his research, he found that 82% of the communication that we do is nonverbal. And that we need to explore that in terms of how we deliver our instruction, how we manage our classrooms, and through the use of nonverbals, there's a definite impact that it has. And the impact is, what we're trying to achieve is engagement. When you have students engaged in their learning, all those other problems disappear. Because they're so in tune with what the teacher's instructing, the activities that they're doing. And so it really truly is about getting students engaged. And when we talk about engagement, I want to also add that the focus of this is to increase and strengthen relationships and also increase productivity, what we're getting out of the students. And those are two very important elements when we talk about Envoy. And so if you look on the screen, 4 phases of teaching is part of Envoy. And in each of those phases, there are 7 gems. You're going to see a video a little bit later that will help you see. I will use that visual. It's a nonverbal, to help explain this so that you can see it for yourself. Phase 1 is really about getting a student's attention. So anytime you need to gather their attention, there's 1 gem that falls in there, or 2 gems, that fall in there. It's something called freeze body and above pause whisper. The great thing about Envoy is I can demonstrate this very simply to you right now. That was freeze body. Above pause whisper is when you just go above the level of your of the classroom, and then you pause. And so I might say, class, I need everybody's eyes up here. It's above pause whisper. It's not too difficult to do. The next phase is teaching. So we've got their attention, now we want to teach. And so the next one is just simply raise your hand. And by raising your hand, you're indicating to the class that now it's okay for me to respond. This cuts down on blurting, when kids just want to get the answers out. And over time, teacher does this. So tell me about your weekend. Kids will raise their hand. That will become a nonverbal cue. Some teachers will do this to indicate that. And so as we move, we're done teaching our instruction. We move to phase 3, and that might be the transitioning to seat work. Now we're going to get ready to give them something to work on, an activity, a project, whatever it might be. And so there's 2 parts to this. One would be exit directions. The teacher will put something up on the board. It will address what it is that they're going to do, how they're going to do it, what they're going to do with it when they're done, and what to do next with that. And so what the exit directions do is it helps create independence. So a lot of times in my past, I'd be, when I was teaching, I would be teaching and I'd say, okay, we're going to do this page in our workbook, go. And so then I'd have the 10 kids coming up to me with questions about what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to put this? And when that happens now, teachers that are using exit directions, they simply just turn to them on the board and they just point. And over time, the kids get used to not going to the teacher, but looking at the exit directions. Another component to those exit directions, especially in our younger grades, but it's recommended for all grades, is that you include a visual with that. So you might say, complete worksheet, page 42, and you would draw a picture of a worksheet on there. For our younger ones, obviously the visuals are much more important. Some of them are non-readers, but seeing that visual will trigger something. And so as they are going through their exit directions, the next thing that the teacher would do is something called MITS. And MITS stands for Most Important 20 Seconds. And as a person who has practiced MITS, it seems like the longest 20 seconds. And sometimes it's not 20 seconds. In kindergarten, it could be 3 or 4 minutes. But again, it's quite simple to do. It's just remembering to do it. And MITS, again, is you're standing. But you establish a spot in your classroom that once I've given the exit directions, I will move to my MITS spot and I will stand there. And over time, the more that you use that, students will start to understand, oh, we're getting ready for work time. I need to get ready. You know, I'm getting my paper out. I'm starting to engage in that. And teachers stand there and they don't move. If a kid comes up for a question, they'll refer to the exit directions. And they wait until every student is engaged in the activity that they're doing. Now, once that's accomplished, we move to phase 4, and that's the seat work, and that's when the kids are actually working. And that's when a teacher can go out and help kids. Maybe if there's kids that are having behavioral challenges, they can go over and help, redirect them. But there's 2 gems within that. It's influence and off, neutral, on, and they work hand in hand together. Influence is there's 4 components. I hope I remember them all. It's really, if I want a student to continue to work, it's where my eyes go. My eyes are on the paper. Children want to make eye contact with you. And when they make eye contact with you, they've got you. So when I walk into a room and they see the principal, I'll give an example, they want to talk to the principal. They want to engage. Hey, Mr. Cressup, how are you doing? And so I have learned that I do not make eye contact anymore when I walk into the room because I want them engaged. And if the teacher's teaching and I walk in to do an observation and I make eye contact with them, they are now looking at me saying, hey, look at me, Mr. Cressup, rather than looking at the teacher or what's on the board. And so that eye contact thing, the kids really look for that. So when we're talking about influence, it's about our eyes looking at what's called a third point. It might be the paper in front of them or whatever's in front of them. It's also approaching from the side. Approaching from the side is critically important rather than approaching them from the front. The front, if I approach Brittany to the front here, it's a power position. It's I'm coming at you and I want you to do this. Influence is done from the side. The third part to that influence is, let's see, no, I lost my train of thought. The eyes, from the side. Oh, it's if you do have to say something, you're saying something very quietly to them. You might use a private voice so nobody else can hear. Again, because if I were to go over to Brittany and say, hey, Brittany, I need you to get this done. Well, now the 10 other kids in the classroom are looking at Brittany to see what she hasn't gotten done rather than being engaged in their activity. And so we try to approach teachers that use influence. Usually it just takes, or a lot of times it'll just take a few steps moving towards the student and they're back on. But for some students it takes a little more. That's where off, neutral, on comes into play. And that's where I will go over and I will use influence, but if that's not effective, essentially what it is, it's called a 2-stage exit. Once I get them back on through influence, I'll take a step back, out of sight where they can't see me, but they can feel me, all right? And I wait until they are engaged before I leave. And it's important that they wait there back engaged. And here's the mentality from that. If the teacher does not wait for them to re-engage in the activity or the work that they're doing, they'll be back to visit them later. And again, hence, they're losing time. And so it's important that they stay there, get them back engaged, and once they're engaged, they can then exit from them and go help the next student. And so teachers that use this, in the end, they are saving a ton of time when they get high implementing with this. And so, again, it's 4 phases. There's 7 gems within each phase, but there's much more to it. There's something called refinements. Such a powerful refinement is to smile. Smile says everything's okay. I'm approachable. Even though on the inside I might not be smiling so much, that smile signals to those kids that the relationship is still there, that you're doing a great job. And so that would be one example of a simple refinement. I'm going to show you so that you can see one of our teachers, Shanna Jury, who is masterful in her use of Envoy and the 7 gems, and I'll try to label it for you as she goes through them. First is freeze body. Right now she's actually having a student where she's using some influence with him in the front. So you can see she's standing there and she's trying to redirect them. At no time did she use any verbal command. You'll see your hand come up or go down. She's waiting for all the kids to get their attention, just standing there. This is raised hand in the teaching. She's going through some handwriting right now, and you'll see in a moment where she'll raise her hand to indicate she wants answers. There the kids' hands go up. Exit directions. You'll see she's writing them on the whiteboard. It was kind of tough to see, but she will include, as I said, written, and this is a first grade classroom. She will write out something and she'll draw a visual of it as well. This is one of those refinements. It's called silent selection I wanted to add. She's dismissing, getting ready to go to seat work for the students. And you'll see when she dismisses her kids back, she doesn't say anything. You can see with her hand, she's just kind of pointing with her hand going up, and her kids go back to their desks. She's developed this routine that kids recognize that nonverbal cue. And now it's Mitz after the silent selection. She's getting all of her kids back. You'll see that she will move. She puts the exit directions so the kids can refer to them. And she will wait. And she will wait until all students are engaged in the handwriting. And this is the influence off neutral on. I think this cuts off a little bit before the off neutral on, but you can see that the kids are working. There's going to be one little guy that needed a little support. She's from the side. You can see she's looking at the paper, and she's helping him with the chair, just pointing. Again, there were no words used during this interaction. So that was more influence than out. She did use off neutral on. She stepped away. I can blame Kirby on the editing. But don't tell him I said that. He helped me greatly with that. So that's just kind of an example. The one you didn't see was above pause whisper. She didn't have to use it because her freeze body has been such a routine that's in place that the kids were ready to go. Continuing on, our journey has been this. Again, this started a couple of years ago when a team of teachers, our team from Lewis and Clark got together and we said we need to do something as a school in regards to getting our kids engaged. And we listed a lot of things. You know, there's PBIS, maybe you've heard of, Nurtured Heart, Love and Logic, and Envoy. And it was about a group of 15 or 16 teachers, and a lot of them said Envoy, and it was great timing because Rachel had already set up for me an opportunity to go to Minneapolis. And boy, when I came back, I said, oh yeah, we need to do Envoy. And the other great thing is the training has been offered through Fargo Public Schools. I'm going to use an Envoy. That's decontamination. I stumbled. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of break and breathe and get myself back together. And so it worked out perfectly. And so we started 2 years ago. We're in year 2. It started with some site visits. And what a site visit is we send 6 teachers last year. We're sending actually 12 this year. Well, maybe not 12, maybe 8 to 9 this year on site visits where they get to go to Minneapolis to high implementing schools and get these things labeled for them. So there'll be 6 people sitting, and Nancy Burns is somebody who is an expert in this. Through her company, and consulting firm. They label things and they get to see these things, just as I mentioned to you, doing the same thing I did to you with the video, talking it through what teachers are doing. And that's a real powerful tool when teachers get to go observe other teachers. The other thing that I think is, for me has been just really impactful and something I'm super excited about continuing to implement is the coaching. And there's two types of coaching. Something called green chair coaching, and that's when Nancy Burns comes from Minneapolis, and she goes into our classrooms and she provides a coaching opportunity where she gets to see what's happening in the classroom and gives feedback to the teacher. And the reason it's called green chair coaching is she actually uses a green chair when she's in there. I have a green chair as well because I am, the next point, an in-house coach. I've went to a training to become a coach. We have 3 in-house coaches at our school, and teachers are able to access us to come in and look at or observe them and then give feedback in the area of Envoy. And I just think that this is such a powerful strategy to use with our teachers. Is that I often think of the analogy is if my plumbing broke down and the plumber came over to me and said, here's what you need to do, and then left, I'd be in big trouble. And I think our teachers, need that same support in a similar way, is that we need to be there to be able to see what's happening in the classrooms and then offer those in-the-moment coaching opportunities. And honestly, because of this coaching, when I go into a classroom, it's all I see now. I'm trying to see some other things when I'm doing other observations, but all I can see is Envoy because it's so ingrained in my mind and again, such a passion of mine. So we do some in-house coaching with both teachers and paraprofessionals. As Rachel mentioned, we are taking this across our school from recess, the playground, to our cafeterias, to our hallways. We're really trying to implement this in every possible area within our school. Our goal is, we want 50% of our staff certified, or hope to have 50% certified this year. What does certification mean? It's kind of a standard of effort that Nancy comes in to, yesterday we just had 4 certified, so we're off to a great start. Last year we had 7 certified, and basically it's just a checklist of them using the GEMS within a 15-minute period time frame. And so again, it's a standard of effort, and it gives a real pat on the back to the teachers that do this. And so our goal is to get 50% this year. I hope to have the first paraprofessional certified in North Dakota. Last year we had the first teachers certified in North Dakota, so we were very proud of that. But it continues. Certification is the first level. We are creating what's called a demonstration team. I have 7 teachers that are interested in becoming demonstration level teachers, and that takes it to a completely different level where we hope to someday be a demonstration school where others come to watch us and how to do this. And our demonstration team obviously would be some people that we would love to have, and again, that's just very deep level implementation. And that can take up to 2 years to get to a demonstration level teacher. Another goal of ours, and this is data that we collect, is to increase the use of the 7 GEMS, and decrease management words. We go in 3 times a year and collect this data, and last year in the fall to the spring, we saw very much a decrease in management words. We want the focus of teachers' language and talk to be on the instruction, not on, I need you to be quiet, I want you to go get your pencil, it's time to line up. We want to decrease those words and increase the use of the 7 GEMS because of the impact it has on the engagement of our students. That is my presentation. Again, I want to thank you. I certainly would take questions. Again, it's something I'm very passionate about and really appreciate the time that I've been given here.
Brandy.
I want to say thank you. Lewis and Clark was my liaison school last year, and I got to see a lot of classrooms use the Envoy, and it is amazing. And then also to my school this year, which is Kennedy, I was over there, and they have a few of the classrooms are also using it, and it's just amazing watching the kids, how they react to those teachers.
Thank you.
So awesome job.
And I would like to say that today I had two situations that really reinforced what we're doing. A teacher from Davies was in our special education room, one of our teachers who just got certified, and she walked into the room and she said, boy, I feel like I have to be quiet in here to bring things to a lower level. And then another teacher came to me and said, we had another guest in our school today, and she said, the school feels different when you walk into the building, not knowing anything about Envoy. And so a couple of teachers came and shared that with me, and I thought, that's what we want. So, any other questions? Thank you.
That gets us to item C on our staff reports, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Schatz for opening introduction.
Okay, well, thank you again. As you know, we have been doing a lot of planning over the summer and adjusting and trying to be nimble and deal with many different issues that come forward to us. And I think Jason just did a really nice job of identifying some of the strategies that we're trying to put in place to assist us with management of students and all the things that go with that. So we thought it was appropriate, now that the school year has started, to have Rachel and to have Patty give you an update on what we've been doing, what's been implemented. Again, this is not an end game, this is an ongoing process. So this is really just an update to keep you updated as to what's going on. So I'll turn it over to Patty and Rachel. So thank you.
Thank you. I see that some of you have this in hard copy, but it was also attached to the agenda and had been out last week. So I'm not going to go through it step by step, but I just kind of want to give you an overview. And Patty is also here if there are questions that come up, because this has really been a joint effort between teaching and learning and special education and all of her coordinators. What we've really tried to do, which starts on page 2, is just really the conversation about, we've been really immersed in MTSS-A or RTI for years, and have taken a long journey of identifying a process that's put in place K through 5 and 6 through 12, and that for Dr. Gross and myself to be able to support that because it's consistently done. The terminology is consistent, the process is pretty similar, and then the way that it looks different is how, just like Jason has done, taken an umbrella and whatever his terminology is and whatever his focus is based on his student demographics, be able to run that technique or program within the MTSS model. So when you read page 2, what I really liked about it, and actually Jen Saar, who is our MTSS-A facilitator, put this together. This is MTSS-A and it's MTSS-B, which really what we should be doing. It's a universal process for how we really help students to be that educating the whole child. So that's just some of the terminology that we use, and we really like terminology in education. The next page is really talking about human resources, and we've had a lot of conversations this year where we did the SEED project last year with the positive behavior interventionists and the technicians. As you're aware, we have added on starting this school year, and we have had just amazing hires. We panic when we put them out thinking, oh, who's gonna wanna do this? And the people that apply are high quality, they're excited, they're forming great relationships with staff, with students, and they're just really an inspiring group to be around, and their jobs are really tough, and they're doing a great job. So this was just to highlight who they are. Some of them you'll see, but we have pictures. Picture days have just occurred, so some of them we don't have at this point. And just to tell you a little bit about where they may have come from, if they were within the education field. So we hired 6 full-time interventionists and 8 full-time technicians across the district. And I think I shared this with you earlier, our last update on June 13th, that we use a rubric that really looks at billing demographics, IEPs, reported behaviors, if there's an assistant or an intern. So not that everybody couldn't benefit from one of these positions, but we only have so much resources. So this is just who they are on those pages. We've also talked about Allie Smith, so on the bottom of page 5, she's a board-certified behavior analysis, a BCBA, and she has been really integral in this work. We consult with her. Patty's department has consulted with her for quite some time, and it's really been more at the level of students who are already identified, and we're just kind of they're tricky, and coming in, doing some observations, and helping us best serve these students. She has really shifted her role this year and really working specifically with how we can consistently manage these new positions, support them, answer questions. She along with Patty and Kim Myers, is meeting in a PLC once a month with the technicians and the interventionists, fielding questions and really seeking that consistency of support for that team. And I did also include that what the training and what we seek and the difference between an interventionist and a technician, because I know that had been brought up this summer, that our interventionists come with a 4-year degree in a human relations field. We have everything from social work to psychology, whatever has brought them here in their past. And then the technicians are a paraprofessional. They take the para-pro training. They have a 4-year high school degree, and then all of them go through this Relias 40-hour training. That's online. I'm taking it at the moment and get quizzes, questions every morning at 6 a.m. before I get out of bed and get tokens. It's got a really good token economy system to keep me motivated to get through the modules. It's a really good training, and I think that's really giving them a common language. And then when Allie comes in to watch them, it is that fidelity check of, so they passed the online training, but how do we ensure it's fidelity to the program? Allie has put together a really nice graphic on page 6. And I think you have seen this before, but just as a reminder of, we try again for consistency when people are feeling stressed because we have students that are exhibiting challenging behaviors. We kind of want to go around the process and say, please take this child and help them. Some of that does happen, but we really try to not make that what this program is. We identify kids, we talk as a team, we identify strengths and challenges, and then build a caseload where they are seeing students, they're checking in and out of the room, or the technician or interventionist is actually coming into the classroom. So this just says what they do and what they do not do. I've talked about Kim Myers. She is working probably 80, 90 hours a week at this point. She's an area service coordinator, and this was added on to her plate. She is amazing. She's knowledgeable. She's driven. She's passionate. In fact, I left the meeting today, and Jason was there as well. She's working with 3 levels of MTSSB across the district. So she has 3 different teacher work groups, one at the elementary level, one at middle, one at high, and then also chairs a K-12 leadership team. And she's really digging into this work and trying to work at the piece of the universal. And I'll get to that in a minute, but we had took an existing position and added quite a bit to her plate, and she's really doing a phenomenal job. So her little picture's included. If you see her, make sure you give her a shout out of the great things she's doing. Allie collected some quotes from the field, and again, just that these aren't magical positions. No one has a magic wand. It's not an easy fix, but the principals submitted things that either came from kids themselves, from staff, from parents, that we have to remember we're only a month and a half into school, and we've already had some great relationships built, and they're making a difference. Skipping over to page 9, this is very small, but we shared something similar to this with you in June. At the time for consistency, we didn't have one form that we were documenting data because we always want to know if we're investing dollars in people resources, how do we know what's working? So Allie's really worked alongside the PBTs and the PBIs to have a consistent data collection sheet on the students. And it's really tracking their progress as well as tracking consistently who we're servicing across the district. And you can see the key on the bottom, but a phrase you probably hear is zones of regulation, and that's a term that we're using across special ed, but really with kids who are having self-regulation issues. So if I'm red, obviously that makes sense too, that I'm having some issues. I'm coming in hot, if you will, and out of control. I may be sent there, I may be escorted there, or I may be one of the kids who recognizes that a trigger was pushed for me, and I'm red, but I can get myself to the room. And so we try to watch that over time. Am I getting to the point that even though I'm red, I'm recognizing in myself that I'm out of control and I need to get out of the environment I'm in. So on page 9, that is just a blank sheet, and page 10, again, I apologize, it's small, is one that is filled out. And we're collecting this data across the board with all of our kids who are participating in the program. Another piece that we have just put into place this fall is a consent form, really wanting parents in our school or non-school-wide buildings. So if they're a non-title or they're a targeted intervention, we really just wanted to be very transparent with parents. And so we have been sending home a consent form, explaining the program to them, telling them what we'll be working on with their student, and we've really gotten great feedback of thank you. It's really good to know that you're recognizing my students having some struggles outside of academics, and we appreciate that you're trying to support them and very on board. We haven't gotten any kickback at all. So that's been a real positive as well. On the bottom of page 10, talks about CPI, which really is Nonviolent Crisis Prevention Intervention. And again, we have went from 5 people previously. This has been in our district for many years. I think I took the training in, I want to say 98 or 99. It's a different program now than it was then. I'm no longer certified. We made a concerted effort this year to increase the number of people who could train. So we went from 5 trainers to 13. There was a blast over the summer where we really looked at this pyramid that Patty's group has actually developed. They got it from CPI, and then we've modified it and used for ourselves to say who needs what training. As Jeff said, this is going to be just a continuous change as we add more staff and we add more trainings. But if you see on the top of page 11, 213 staff members have participated in training since July 1st. And that's a pretty big effort. And again, it's those 13 people that have taken the trainer. We've really had a lot of conversation about this pyramid again that looks familiar. It mirrors our RTI or MTSS, and trying to look at kids that are either high risk, medium risk, or low risk, and then based on the staff that has the opportunity to work with them, how do we give them the best skills they need? So we have talked about regular education teachers, what might they need. We've really talked about out of the modules, the most important piece if you're working with a child who probably isn't going to be exhibiting physical aggression is, like Jason talked about, the low voice, the relationship, when you use eye contact, when you don't, and really talking about de-escalating students before you have a crisis on your hand. So we are continuing that work. You'll see on the next page that it's talking about all the dates that training did take place in July and August and into September, and that we have some future work to do to talk about how many units or models that our first response team needs, how do we get regular education teachers trained, where do we make time in their day to support their learning, and then all the way down to our bus drivers. We have a Valley Bus driver who's actually a trainer, and so what does that look like, and what units do they need to be successful with the kids they have on their bus? Page 13. This talks about the MTSS, and this again was taken from the June 13th slideshow. And if you remember, we talked about that last year. We were a little bit more reactive with this as things came on a little bit quickly with some of our behaviors in January, that we really looked at those top 2 tiers. We were looking at the intensive and the targeted, which is the work that's been done. You know, the average student, 80-90% of our population, they need some of the things that Jason's talked about, that relationship with kids and really just the appropriate verbal redirection or nonverbal redirection. And we didn't have the opportunity last year to take a breath to really look at what are we doing for 80 to 90% of our kids at that universal level. And so that's the work that we're doing through our work groups. Tonight, in fact, in 2 hours, we were screening universal screeners. We used a screener to screen. That's a lot of screening. We used a rubric, and we looked at the top rated. There was probably 50 of them, and our leadership team last Friday did an initial screening. We looked at everything from cost to time to training teachers would need, if parents were asked, if the student themselves were asked about their behavior, and we narrowed it down to 6, and then the task force tonight at the elementary level is going to come up with their top 1. I ended up leaving to come here, so I think that will be the next piece of that. And we've talked about that all students and all adults could learn more about their own whole self and self-regulation, and what do I do when I get to a problem I don't know how to solve? What if Dr. Gross is kind of getting on my nerves today? What are my choices I can do? That would never happen. But to really, all kids can be screened, and we can teach kids things about themselves. Attention seekers, why are they seeking attention? And what can we do to help them get the attention they need that's positive and not negative? So we will have continued focus from MTSSB. Page 14 is just what we had put out to teachers. This was out on our employee portal. Kim worked to do this. You can see who's on the leadership team in the middle. We really talked about that importance of continued collaboration and conversation. If you have elementary, middle, and secondary all working separately, we don't want it to look different. That's actually even part of state law around this effort, is that they want them to be identical, meaning that we have a process that's continuous K through 12, which would be the best thing to do for our students as well. So this leadership team will be meeting in between to be updating from elementary all the way through the high school team. I think that's it. And the next page is just the membership. I know that's been a question. We've continued to add. Tonight we expected 20 people. We set up for 30 because we shared the date with all of the building principals and said, if you have an interest, please come. We actually did the narrative 4 idea, Linda, that you talked about. So we were creating our why tonight. Why do you want to be here? Why are you taking time on a Tuesday night to join us? And they shared with a partner, and then the partner took on the personality of the other person and shared. So we had teachers sitting by principals and special education teachers sitting by the dropout prevention coordinator, and they all shared their why. And it was really just a nice grounding of, there's a lot of purposes and passion behind helping to improve this for our students and our staff. And last but not least, on the final page, page 16, is our student behavior reporting form. We worked on this over the summer. I think I had updated you that we had a kind of an open house. I believe it was in June, it may have been in July, where we engaged about 25 staff and principals in looking at the draft reporting form, consistency of how we're reporting that, what we're reporting. We've shared that policy with you, which is about our student behavior, discipline, and consequences. Bob has also been working with this with the secondary group because it's K-12 and shifting this over to Power School. And I believe you and Dell looked at that today. And so that is a continuing process. Right now, the secondary principals are putting that into Power School because they use that as their platform more regularly than the elementaries. Elementary are using paper right now, but we're making that transition. And again, it's the language of the policy, disaggregating, is it a minor, is it a major, what is the follow through, as well as communication with staff, paraprofessionals, and parents. So that is my update, and I would encourage questions as long as Patty's here to support me.
Brandy?
I do have a couple. The CPI, how often is that training? I know that you said that it's been a while for you. So, I mean, like, how far is it? Does that go 2 years, 4 years before it's kind of out of date and you need retraining on it?
Yeah, that's one of the things that's a great question. Kim and I worked on that. When we talk about it, we were in a meeting with Protection and Advocacy, and that very question was asked. And it's something that we had to think about. There's no, CPI itself does not have a mandated time, but our district has taken the stance that if you are on the first responder team, you can go with full training and then 2 years of review and renewal, and then another full training. And then we haven't totally formulated for de-escalation techniques. We're thinking that could use a little bit longer period of time, maybe 5 years. And I think we have to really look at the different units and respond to the school's needs. So we're starting to formulate how that can look. And I always figure I use the judgment of what am I proud to stand up and say. So when we have that, then I think we're okay. And we just really want to make sure that the people we have doing this work feel comfortable doing it and that we're responding to their needs as well. We could say to somebody, you can take it as often as you want. It's what we're going to decide to cycle through, though. So again, first responders, those that you can call anybody at any time in a building, we really want to make sure that they're on a 3-year full with review and renewal in between.
Then also to the MTSSB, is that something that's offered to every teacher and they're just told when the dates are and then they choose to go to your training? Or, I mean, like, how does that work? I mean, do you guys just send out something so they're all, I mean, I understand that it's communicated to them, but like, how does that whole process go? I mean, is it up to them or is there anything that's mandatory for them? Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. That's something that's in the works. So I probably wasn't very clear on that piece, that we are really developing the process for MTSSB right now. That doesn't mean that there aren't teams all over the place that have already got their own process going. typically mirroring MTSS-A. However, we are looking at that universal piece. So if we were to pick a screener, we'll probably purchase a couple of them, try it in a couple of buildings, and then we will train a team. So we would either push that into buildings and go in and do the training, or offer them as teach-to-learns for the teams. And then what's nice about the MTSS B and A, every teacher doesn't need to have the full-fledged training. They need to know in their buildings, what's my process if at my PLC I have a student who I'm concerned about, that PLC team talks about it. It's very similar to the A process. And if they determine that needs to go to the building level for more support, then that's on a schedule at the building level, and they sign up and say, we have a second grade student, this is who's attending, and then the team supports that.
That's great and awesome work, you guys.
Yeah, I'll just, if there's no other questions, I'll just make the follow-up questions here to kind of surmise all of what's going on, and that is, we're taking a very aggressive approach here, and it's in the, it's as we're moving, if you will. And so again, my comments in cabinet have been that we need to be nimble, we need to be watching what we're doing, how we're doing it. This is an everybody on deck kind of an approach. It's not an isolated approach. One particular group can't fix this. And I think when the word fix is used also, that it's a problem, because behaviors are not going to go away. How we respond to behaviors, how we work with those behaviors, how we become more knowledgeable to work with those behaviors, the training, those types of things is going to be the way that we can manage this best. The other thing I will tell you, that I cannot go to any meeting with any other school district where this isn't the number one issue that they're dealing with. Behaviors of students, issues and concerns that we have. And so I'm really proud of the team and the efforts that they're trying to make here. Like I said, on the move. These folks have put in tremendous amount of time. And this has been a shift in what we do as a school district. Tremendous amount of resources, tremendous amount of time. And so people need patience to allow it to work its way through, and for the trainings and everything else to start working. We've had some negative people that have said, oh, this won't work and this isn't the right way to go, but they haven't given it a chance. And so, and I'm also going to tell you that the tracking and of the data, whether it's a minor incident, a major incident, all those things, you're going to see stunning data when it's done, because we're collecting everything now. And we're leaving it up to the individual to make that decision. And so you're going to see numbers that you've never seen before, but it's the first time that we're going to really do a good job of trying to collect that data. So we're setting baseline data. So it'll, there'll be folks that'll say, look at all these incidents. Well, we're trying to segregate that out better, so we know what we're dealing with. So anyways, I'm doing an interview again tomorrow on the radio on this. I did an interview yesterday on TV on this, and so I'm more than happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk about it, but it's us all together on this. And just again, really proud of the work they're doing. Patty and Rachel have spearheaded this. There's been a lot of people involved, but it's a tireless effort. And the thing is on top of it all, we're still educating kids and we're running a school system, okay? I had a wise administrator once tell me that when you have a school district this size and you have 11,400 kids that come to school every day, you have 1,800 full-time employees come to work every day, a whole lot could go wrong. And the truth of the matter is that a whole lot goes right. A whole lot goes right every day. And so we need to remember that too. So we'll do further updates as we continue to move throughout the year, and at any time people have questions, certainly feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patty and Rachel. Moving on to item 4D, State of the School Address. I think there was a handout at your workstation as you got here this evening. And Jeff, you want to make some comments on this, I assume?
Very quickly, just wanted to give you an update on the planning that's going on for the public forum, public address. We're taking a little bit of a different approach this year to the actual address part. What will happen at that is I'll give a little bit of an introduction. Obviously, we'll have the district data and information available to people through the annual report, which is close to being done. I believe we're going to be getting that out to you soon, if you haven't already received it. I can't remember what Anne Marie's done. And anyways, tied to that then, would be the focus for this evening. And I'm going to have Bob explain to you a little bit of what we've talked about with the presentation piece to it. And what we provided for you tonight is what we would send out to those people who have signed up for participation. A letter from Jim and I, your board president, and identifying what the questions will be in the focus groups and a little bit of background on those. But regarding the presentation part, if Bob, you would tell the folks here a little bit what we have planned.
Absolutely. After Dr. Schatz is done with the introduction, what we are going to do from teaching and learning is really connect back to the new Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. And under ESSA, the big push is making sure that students are choice ready, that they are ready for college, career, or military. So part of what we're going to do is highlight some of the different programs and initiatives that we have across the district that really add to that opportunity. So we're going to start our presentations with the idea around those 21st century skills and what they are and why they are critically important for whatever that next step is. Getting ready for college, getting ready for career or military. I need to be able to think critically and create and be creative. I need to be able to collaborate and to communicate. So we're going to set the stage with that. And to help us with that, Jodelle Teichen, our Director of Standards-Based Education, is going to help us with that. Then we're going to transition into some of the different and unique things that we're doing across our system with project-based learning, and really how we give students the opportunity to dig into a problem, to come up with a solution, and apply those 21st century skills in unique ways. Amy Soma is going to help lead some of those conversations, and in addition we have representatives from the elementary, middle school, and high school from our library media specialists who will be sharing examples of what's been happening across our system so that our community can see some of those pieces. They'll either come in through visuals that we'll put up on the screen or small video snippets of here's a project in action so people can see that. Along with that, along both of those presentations, we're going to be talking about how technology is used across our system, how it's used to help our students with those 21st century skills, how it's used to help students in project-based learning opportunities, and then finally we're going to slide into the last piece of our presentation around career and technical education and how that is a critical component for many, if not all of our students as they look for what is their choice going to be moving forward. So Denise Jonas, our Director of Career and Tech Education, is going to talk a little bit about career pathways that we have, about some of the different course offerings that we have that maybe some of our community members just do not know that are part of our really rich and deep program of study. So the hope is then after those 4 topics are done, pulled together in about a half-hour presentation, people will go back to their rooms, and on page 2 of the handout, you'll see the types of questions that we are going to ask people to concentrate on, to talk a little bit about, to give us feedback on what we need to refine, do a little bit better, or put more or less emphasis on as we move forward in and around teaching and learning. So that's that presentation.
And so Anne Maria has been busy collecting names from principals. We asked principals to submit 10 names of people, parents in particular, who would commit to attending. We're trying to do a better job with that this year. Last year we had a lot of people that didn't show. So what we obviously don't have an issue big enough for them to want to sometimes come, but really this is academically focused to get feedback on what we're doing with all of this. And so she'll be reaching out to those folks, sending out packets. We also have had open registration. She's already had several people who have signed up and said they would like to come. And so we're going to do everything we can to get as many people as we can there. You'll have assignments. I'm sure she'll be communicating that to you for that evening. So for those of you who can be there. And then our administrative group and leadership teams will be there also and participate just like we have in the past. We'll do a follow-up survey with the folks who attend so we get that feedback. And we'll continue to follow kind of that process now that we've put in place. So I think we're pretty well prepared now with what we think the structure of the evening will look like. It's just a matter of pulling it together and in trying to get as many people there as possible to participate. So that's where we're at right now.
Rebecca.
Anne Marie, how many do we have roughly that have signed up for the open sign up?
Like through the website. Sometimes they sign up even though the principal sent them in to me as well, so I kind of have to review that once I get everything in from the principals. We've probably had
40 to 50 people sign up through the internet, through the website, which is an increase in the past. I continually get them. I've gotten some as we sat here as well. So it's good to see. We're advertising it in the newspaper. We have it out on social media. We put press releases out. Obviously, our schools have put them out as well in their newsletter. So we are trying to have a broad reach of people as well.
So a year or two ago, we hosted a group specific to, I think we invited business leaders. I can't remember what we called it, but I know there was talk of technology and 21st century skills, and we sort of had round tables. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Specific to those folks that we invited, have we made also a special invitation for them as well to attend, since it seems like there's some of the same topics?
That really hasn't been the focus of what we're doing here.
Okay.
That was a focus group effort that we put in prior to our strategic planning process. So that was a concerted effort at that time. That's actually been probably 3 years ago, Jen. Yeah, it has been, yeah. I know my hairline is starting to show you that the timeline's going fast. But yeah, it's been. And so no, that's not what the purpose of this hasn't been for that in particular. That could be something that could be talked about at another time if we want to try to do some focus grouping on that. But right now, our emphasis is to try to get those who we serve, parents and others, to come and to have that opportunity. So, yeah. Well, and the opportunity is there for them to sign up or be part of. So, yeah, we're doing everything we can to try to get people there.
Okay, we have actually went longer than I normally would without us having a break, but I also think unless, well, you guys tell me, our board report's going to take a lot of time.
No.
Well, then let's keep going. Is everybody okay with that? In hopes of maybe getting out of here a little earlier. We're to our consent agenda. Dinah.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. President, could
Yep.
I have item B set aside for further discussion?
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda without item B, which we'll take up next. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed signify by saying no. Motion carries. Award proposal for outdoor sign at Horace Mann, memo number 42. David, you must have a question or a thought.
Well, I do. We've got programs at our high schools where kids are building houses, and we've got full woodworking shops. Isn't this something we can handle in-house for about $500 worth of material?
Absolutely not. These are, yeah, I'm just going to say it. Absolutely not. I mean, these are highly designed signs. The reason that this one's being replaced is because there was a tree being cut down and it hit the sign that was existing there. And so it wiped out whatever sign they had. And so this is really a replacement sign. We've been using indigo, but these Daktronic type systems, we couldn't build ourselves. And so, and they are costly. And what we've done, and I'll, Brock, if you've got additional comments, you can, but what we've done is with our newer projects now, we're including that in the process of the building itself. And so we also replaced another one at Madison, you'll remember here just not too long ago because of their sign being so old. And but if you're going to do this kind of signage, it's not something we can do in our own school district here. So
Then this, Lewis and Clark has a sign where they just go out and they put up letters and numbers for events that are coming up. These are electronic. Is it the intention that we'll have these at all of the schools?
no, it's not the intention to do that. I'll give you an example of what we were struggling with when I first came on as superintendent was PTAs and other groups were raising money to put signs up. And it was this siloed approach to doing it. And what they did over at Lewis and Clark is they threw up this new sign that was really an old school sign. And what happens for Jim Free and his team is that then they want power run to it and they want all these other things. And so those types of signs that you see out there like that were done prior to us trying to put a process in place. And so now what we've said is if we have to replace a sign or we feel that we need to upgrade something, we're going to go through the bid process. We're going to work with Indigo. You've seen Discovery add a sign here recently. last couple of years. The Eagles project, the Ed Clap project, this Horseman one was busted up because of a tree falling on it. But in Madison, I just felt in that neighborhood that when I went by the school, there were several things I wasn't happy with the presentation of the school from the street side. And so we did landscaping things there. We put up a new flagpole. We said, let's get them a new sign to make this a better presentation to the school. I don't think we can afford putting up new signs at every single school. So again, it's in kind of as needed as we think we should. But what we want to do is get PTAs and other people out of the business of signage, mortar, brick and mortar, those kinds of things. And so that's where we're at right now, and that's been where we've landed.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Anne Marie, would you call the roll?
I need a motion first.
Are you gonna-
Oh, okay. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the proposal of Indigo Sign Works in the amount of $29,440 for an outdoor sign at Horace Mann Elementary and issue a purchase order accordingly.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Paulson. No. Rodenbacher.
Yes.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Ani.
Yes.
Benson.
Oops, yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Motion carries. Gets us to our first business item, which is item 6A. I'd reference you over to memo number 43 in your package. When we were reviewing GP2, I think it was Rebecca pointed out that the language had indicated that we would be reviewing things at every meeting. We actually have a set calendar, so they all get touched throughout the course of the year, but it isn't necessarily at every meeting. Governance met, and we are recommending a language change to eliminate the words at each meeting and instead just insert regularly under paragraph 6 of GP2. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation of the GP be approved as presented.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Rodenbacher.
Yes.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Ani.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Gets us to our board reports. And we'll start with John this evening.
Not much. I would just ask that you all please pay attention to your emails as we're continuing to work through the negotiations trainings for the board and have more details on that very soon. Thank you very much.
Brandy.
Well, I met with my liaison schools, Kennedy and Discovery, and it was a very nice visit, and you will see it in my report.
Super.
That's it.
Jennifer.
I attended the Teacher of the Year Award at South, which was very nice to be a part of, so I was happy I could be there. And it was great. There was a lot of, well, there was a few people attended, and then they had a lot of fantastic things to say, so that's it. That's really all I have to report tonight.
Super. Dinah.
Wow, we're not even going in regular order tonight. Keep us jumping. All I have to report is communications next meeting is set for Friday, November the 17th at 7:30. I know that's far away, but there was a poll that was sent out, so after, that's where we're at. And I too attended the Teacher of the Year. It was kind of fun because I've been there for all of the legs of that. So it was fun to see that Leah got this role, so.
Nothing to report other than I have set up my visitations for next week and looking forward to them.
Christy.
My appointments are set for my visitations in the next 2 weeks.
David.
I met with Jason Cressup and is it Beth Olson, his administrative intern on Monday. Had a really good conversation, toured the school, had lunch with my granddaughter, and I have set up South High for Monday.
Rebecca?
Yesterday, I attended the celebration over at Agassiz, the powwow for Indigenous Peoples Day, so that was very fun to see a bunch of little kiddos dancing. And any rate, we had a meeting scheduled last week for the Native American Commission, but it was canceled because people were busy planning for the events yesterday. And I wanted to let you know that I passed out, the handout here is from me, and it was from the forum that was at Fargo South when Superintendent Baszler came for the presentation. So I just thought I'd share that with you so we all know what was handed out to those that participated. And I was happy to be at the presentation as well for Teacher of the Year. Thank you.
I think you have a copy of the President's report in front of you. There are a couple of things I want to highlight on it and a couple other items I need to cover. First of all, October 17th, please mark that on your calendar. We're meeting with the city and the parks. It's going to be up at Edgewood, I believe. I'm not sure if it's at the old chalet or Divots, but we'll figure it out when we get there. Do you think it's at the old chalet? It's the old chalet. You think so? Okay. Then please note under homework that if you have not already done the doodle poll on the winter retreat, please do so. And you have 2 homework assignments that are due by October 18th, GP 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Sounds like a lot, but if you looked at it today, it's really not that time consuming. Probably equally, or certainly perhaps even more important from my perspective, is your superintendent evaluation. Part 1 of that process has to occur this fall. So please take the time to put down your thoughts, get them back to Anne Marie by October 18th, because governance will need them at our October meeting to put a consolidated report together and present back to the board. One other date that is not on here that I think you could put into hard pencil because we got to get absolute confirmation, but we will probably do the negotiations training on November 11th. That's Saturday. It is going to be a 4-hour training session, so right now I'm tentatively saying we're going to start at 8 and be done by noon. John is going to be in contact with our trainer and confirm that that all is going to work on his calendar, but last word we had, that did work for him. And so that'll be the tentative date. Once we have absolute confirmation and a contract from our trainer, we'll put out a notice as well to remind everybody of that date. A couple other things from a president's perspective that I wanted to share. First of all, SEEC had a board meeting since we last met. We took a look at our updated budget. The REAs are certainly in budget tight mode right now too, because this is Succeed 2020 grant has all but evaporated at this point in time. But many of those services, there is a real desire to continue, and we're trying to scramble to figure out how we're going to make that happen with less dollars. We had some staffing updates that we were given. We reviewed a couple issues in our strategic planning process and elected new officers for this coming year. Governance met, and just to share with you the training, professional development things that governance is going to be working on through this year for all of us as board members. Obviously, the negotiation training that I just referenced on the 11th of October. I believe as you individually met with Dr. Schatz, he had some conversation with you regarding how foundation aid formula works. I'm going to be working with our business manager to really get a kind of a quick, easy way to understand all the components of our revenue streams, because foundation aid is just one of them. We have lots of different ways money comes into the district, and we'll probably look at doing something at the winter retreat in terms of that. And then I think there was a request to get more information on the curriculum review process, and that's something that we'll be seeing probably in the spring of the year, and potentially depending upon how everything works out for the winter retreat, maybe as early as that. So those are the 3 big items. There were a couple of requests that really got into information that we decided to hold off on until the study group that's coming in from the East Coast to work with our entire district to really uncover every rock in the district to see how we're spending our resources and come back with suggestions. So there may be some additional professional development training opportunities for us after that process begins to unfold a little bit more. I do have a specific request of 5 of you this evening. But before I do that, I have a specific request of Brandy. Are you willing to be an alternate delegate? Because Christy has informed me she is not going to be able to stay for the delegate.
Yes, I will. I'll be there for the whole day Friday.
You two will have to go into the registration in Bismarck where you get your packet and your name card and let them know that you're going to fill in for Christy as an alternate because those delegate assignments have already been put out to Bismarck. Jennifer, Rebecca, David, John, and Christy, before you leave this room, I would like you to stop by over at the desk to my left and just confirm where we are on the National School Board Association travel plans, as Anne-Marie has a question or two that she needs the answer to before she can actually start the process, which I think is later this week or early next week.
Next week.
Yeah. So please take a moment to stop by. And that's it from your president. Our next meeting will be on October 24th, although we will be meeting on October 17th at Edgewood. So please mark that on your calendar. And we are officially adjourned.